Fasting for weight loss sounds simple, yet most people struggle because timing decides everything, and timing remains the least understood part of the process. Some people fast for a few hours and see zero change, while others push too far and end up tired, frustrated, and heavier than before. This video uncovers the truth behind fasting duration, the silent biological switches inside the body, and the exact moment when fat burning truly begins. You will learn why very short fasts barely touch stored fat, why extreme fasting can slow progress instead of speeding it up, and how hormones quietly control success or failure during every fasting window. Many popular opinions online skip these details, yet science tells a different story, one that surprises even experienced daters. By the end of this video, you will clearly understand how long fasting actually works for weight loss, which fasting lengths support steady results, and which ones secretly work against you. We will break down the hidden role of insulin, stress hormones, and metabolism in simple language, so every concept feels clear and practical. This knowledge helps viewers avoid wasted effort, protect muscle, and build a routine that fits real life instead of extreme trends. Stay until the end because the final section reveals the single fasting range that works best for most people and explains why consistency matters more than suffering. These insights can change how weight loss feels, turning confusion into confidence and effort into visible results. Welcome to our channel, where we simplify health, expose overlooked facts, and help you make smarter choices backed by research. If content like this helps you think differently and take control of your health, subscribe to the channel and stay connected for more clear, honest guidance that cuts through noise and delivers real value every time. Weight loss is often explained as a simple numbers game, yet the body responds less to calorie math and more to hormonal signals that decide whether energy gets stored or released. Among these hormones, insulin plays the most powerful role. Insulin rises when food is eaten, especially foods high in sugar or refined carbohydrates, and its main job is to move energy into storage. When insulin stays high for long periods, the body remains locked in storage mode, making fat loss difficult even with reduced calorie intake. Fasting changes this internal environment by giving insulin levels time to fall. As insulin drops, the body receives a different message, one that allows stored fat to be released and used for energy instead of being preserved. When fasting continues beyond the early hours, the body gradually shifts its fuel source. Glycogen stores, which are short-term energy reserves, begin to decline, and fat becomes a more accessible option. This transition does not happen instantly. It depends on how long insulin stays low and how often that low insulin state is repeated. This explains why fasting works differently from constant calorie restriction. Instead of fighting hunger all day, fasting creates clear windows where the body can focus on repair and fat usage without interruption. Hormones such as glucagon increase, encouraging fat breakdown, while growth hormone rises to help protect muscle tissue during energy use. However, fasting is not a switch that turns fat on automatically. Timing determines how effective this hormonal shift becomes. Short fasting periods may lower insulin briefly, but not long enough to create meaningful fat burning. Longer fasting periods extend the low insulin state, allowing fat metabolism to continue. Yet this also increases stress hormones that influence energy balance. The body constantly looks for stability, and it responds differently depending on how often and how long fasting occurs. Repeated patterns teach the body to adapt, either supporting steady fat loss or triggering resistance when the stress becomes excessive. The reason fasting works lies in this hormonal rhythm rather than discipline alone. Insulin reduction opens access to stored fat, but the length and frequency of fasting shape how efficiently that access is used. Each fasting window sends a signal, and the body responds based on its recent history, energy needs, and recovery ability. Understanding this process explains why some people see progress quickly while others feel stuck using the same approach. The effectiveness of fasting rests in how well the timing aligns with the body's natural metabolic responses, keeping fat burning active without pushing the system into defensive mode. One of the most common mistakes people make with fasting is believing that pushing the fasting window longer will automatically speed up fat loss. This idea sounds logical on the surface, yet the human body does not work in a straight line. The body body is designed to adapt to repeated patterns, especially when it senses prolonged periods without food. When fasting becomes too long or too frequent, the body begins to interpret the situation as a form of stress rather than a controlled metabolic strategy. This response changes how energy is managed, often in ways that work against weight loss goals. As fasting length increases, stress hormones such as cortisol begin to rise. Cortisol plays an important role in survival, but elevated levels over time can interfere with fat loss. Higher cortisol encourages the body to conserve energy and protect vital tissues, sometimes by holding on to fat stores. It can also increase cravings and disrupt sleep, both of which affect metabolic balance. While short or moderate fasting may lower insulin and support fat burning, excessive fasting can shift the body into a defensive state where efficiency becomes more important than fat loss. Another issue appears when the body starts looking for alternative fuel sources beyond fat. Without adequate nutritional signals, muscle tissue can be broken down to provide amino acids for essential functions. Muscle loss reduces overall energy demand, which lowers metabolic rate. A slower metabolism means fewer calories burned at rest, making continued fat loss harder over time. This process often goes unnoticed at first, as the scale may still change, yet body composition shifts in an unfavorable direction. The body also becomes more efficient at surviving long fasting periods. By reducing energy output, movements become subconsciously smaller, daily activity drops, and the body learns to do more with less. This adaptation slows progress even when fasting windows remain long. What once produced results can gradually stop working, leading to frustration and confusion. Many people respond by extending the fast even further, unknowingly reinforcing the same stress response that caused the slowdown. Fasting works best when it signals balance rather than deprivation. When fasting becomes excessive, hormonal responses shift from fat burning to preservation. The belief that longer always equals better ignores how adaptive the body truly is. Instead of accelerating fat loss, extreme fasting often triggers biological safeguards that reduce efficiency, protect stored energy, and make progress harder despite increased effort. Short fasting windows lasting between 12 and 14 hours represent the most approachable form of fasting and often feel like a natural extension of daily life rather than a strict rule. In most cases, this fasting period happens overnight, starting after the last meal of the evening and ending with breakfast the next morning. Because sleep covers a large portion of the fasting window, the process feels manageable and low stress. This makes it especially suitable for people who are new to fasting or who prefer gradual changes instead of dramatic shifts in eating patterns. During this shorter fasting period, the body begins to experience brief breaks from constant digestion. These breaks allow insulin levels to settle instead of remaining elevated throughout the day. Even modest reductions in insulin improve the body's ability to regulate blood sugar and reduce unnecessary energy storage. Digestion also becomes more efficient as the gastrointestinal system has time to complete its work without continuous intake. Many people notice less bloating and more stable energy levels simply from giving the body consistent rest between meals. Fat loss during a 12 to 14-hour fast tends to occur slowly, yet this pace often supports long-term success rather than forcing rapid changes. This approach aligns with the body's natural rhythm. Hunger hormones adjust gradually, making it easier to maintain regular eating habits without intense cravings. Because the fasting window is short, stress hormones remain relatively stable, which helps preserve muscle tissue and overall metabolic rate. This balance allows fat loss to occur without triggering the defensive responses that often follow more aggressive fasting strategies. Another advantage of short fasting lies in consistency. Since the routine does not disrupt social life or daily responsibilities, it becomes easier to repeat day after day. Repetition builds metabolic familiarity, teaching the body to expect periods without food while still feeling secure. Over time, this predictability improves insulin sensitivity and encourages better use of stored energy. Progress may feel subtle, yet it accumulates steadily through repeated cycles rather than dramatic swings. Short fasting also creates a foundation for healthier habits beyond weight loss. Meal timing becomes more intentional. Late night snacking often decreases and food choices tend to improve naturally. These changes support overall metabolic health while reinforcing a sustainable relationship with food by focusing on routine rather than restriction. This fasting style fits comfortably into long-term lifestyles, allowing gradual fat loss to develop alongside improved digestion, hormonal balance, and daily energy without placing the body under unnecessary strain. Moderate fasting, built around a 16-hour fasting window, has become the most widely practiced approach because it strikes a balance between effectiveness and sustainability. Often referred to as the 16-to-8 method, this pattern limits eating to a consistent daily window while extending the time the body remains without food. Unlike shorter fasts, 16 hours allows insulin levels to fall more deeply and remain low for a longer period. This creates a metabolic environment where stored fat becomes a primary energy source rather than a backup option. As insulin stays low, fat cells are able to release energy more freely, supporting a steady shift toward fat burning. At the same time, hunger hormones begin to adapt to the new rhythm. Ghrelin, the hormone responsible for signaling hunger, starts aligning with the eating window instead of triggering constant cravings throughout the day. This adjustment makes fasting feel easier over time as hunger becomes more predictable and less intense. Many people notice that the urge to snack decreases and meals feel more satisfying despite fewer eating hours. Energy levels often improve during a 16-hour fast, especially once the body adapts. Instead of experiencing frequent spikes and crashes from repeated meals, energy becomes more stable. The body learns to switch efficiently between fuel sources, using fat when food is unavailable and glucose when meals are consumed. Mental clarity may increase as well, driven by more stable blood sugar levels and reduced digestive workload. This sense of balance helps people stay active and focused, which supports overall metabolic health. Research consistently points to this fasting duration as a reliable method for gradual fat loss. The combination of reduced insulin exposure, improved hormonal balance, and manageable structure allows weight to decrease without extreme restriction. Muscle mass is better preserved compared to longer fasting periods, especially when protein intake remains adequate during eating hours. This preservation helps maintain metabolic rate, allowing fat loss to continue steadily rather than stalling over time. The 16-hour fasting approach fits into a wide range of lifestyles because it offers flexibility while maintaining clear boundaries. Meals can be adjusted to personal schedules, making it easier to remain consistent. The body responds well to this predictable pattern, adapting in a way that supports fat loss without triggering excessive stress. For many people, this balance between structure and flexibility creates a routine that feels natural, effective, and sustainable, allowing progress to build gradually through repetition rather than force. Longer fasting periods lasting between 18 and 24 hours push the body into a deeper metabolic state that differs noticeably from shorter fasts. During this extended window, insulin remains low for a prolonged time, allowing fat burning to increase beyond earlier stages. Stored fat becomes a primary fuel source, and the body relies more heavily on fatty acids and ketones for energy. This shift can feel powerful, especially for those who have already adapted to shorter fasting routines and want to explore a deeper level of metabolic flexibility. As the fasting window lengthens, cellular repair processes such as autophagy may begin to activate more strongly. Autophagy helps the body break down damaged components and recycle them for energy and repair. This process is often associated with improved metabolic efficiency and cellular health. While the exact timing varies between individuals, longer fasts provide a clearer signal for these internal cleanup mechanisms to engage. This is one reason some people choose occasional longer fasts as part of a broader health routine rather than a daily strategy. However, extended fasting also places greater demands on the body, which can lead to increased stress hormone production. Cortisol levels tend to rise as fasting continues, especially when energy reserves feel threatened. Elevated cortisol can affect mood, sleep, and recovery, influencing how the body responds to ongoing fasting. While short bursts of stress can be manageable, repeated exposure without adequate recovery may interfere with fat loss and overall balance. This is why fasting at this length often feels more intense and requires greater awareness of physical signals. Because of these hormonal shifts, fasting for 18 to 24 hours is rarely suited for daily repetition. The body benefits more when this approach is used occasionally, allowing time for recovery and adaptation between fasting days. Eating days become especially important as nutrient intake must support muscle maintenance, hormone production, and energy restoration. Protein, minerals, and overall calorie quality play a central role in how well the body responds to longer fasts. When practiced occasionally and supported by proper nutrition, longer fasting can serve as a strategic tool rather than a constant routine. The body responds differently at this level, emphasizing both opportunity and challenge. Understanding the increased demands placed on the system helps explain why this fasting length requires careful balance, intentional timing, and thoughtful recovery to avoid pushing the body into unnecessary stress while still allowing deeper metabolic processes to unfold. Extended fasting that lasts beyond 24 hours moves the body into a state that is very different from shorter fasting methods. While insulin remains low and fat continues to be used for energy, fat loss does not increase in a straight or predictable way. The body prioritizes survival when food absence extends for too long, and this changes how energy is managed. Instead of steadily increasing fat breakdown, the body begins conserving resources, making the process less efficient than many expect. As fasting continues past a full day, the risk of muscle breakdown becomes more significant. Muscle tissue provides amino acids that support essential functions during prolonged energy shortage. When these amino acids are taken from muscle, overall lean mass begins to decline. This change affects body composition and reduces daily energy needs. With less muscle available, the body requires fewer calories, which can reduce total energy expenditure. Over time, this adaptation makes further fat loss harder to achieve, even when fasting continues. Metabolic rate can also respond to extended fasting by slowing down. The body becomes more efficient at using energy, reducing heat production, and limiting movement without conscious awareness. Small daily actions use fewer calories and overall output decreases. This response helps the body endure long periods without food, yet it works against sustained weight loss goals. Progress that seemed promising early on may slow or stall as the body adapts to prolonged deprivation. Another challenge appears when eating resumes after extended fasting. Hunger signals often return with greater intensity, driven by hormonal shifts and depleted energy stores. This can increase the likelihood of overeating or loss of control around food. Large swings between long fasting periods and high intake disrupt consistency, making it harder to maintain stable progress. The psychological strain of extended fasting can also affect decision-making, sleep quality, and stress levels, all of which influence metabolism. Because of these combined effects, extended fasting is rarely suited for regular weight loss routines. The body responds more defensively at this level, prioritizing preservation over gradual change. When extended fasting is used, it typically requires structured planning, nutritional oversight, and clear recovery periods. Guidance helps ensure that muscle, metabolic health, and overall balance are protected while navigating a state that places significant demands on the body. The search for the best fasting duration often leads to the assumption that one perfect number exists for everyone, yet the body responds differently based on lifestyle, metabolism, and daily demands. Factors such as sleep quality, stress levels, activity, and food choices all influence how fasting feels and how effective it becomes. Because of these differences, fasting cannot follow a single universal rule. What works smoothly for one person may feel draining or ineffective for another, even when the fasting length appears identical on paper. Within this range of responses, a fasting window between 14 and 16 hours tends to offer the most consistent balance for a large number of people. This duration provides enough time for insulin levels to drop, and remain low long enough to encourage fat burning without extending into a range that places excessive stress on the body. Fat becomes more accessible as a fuel source while the body still feels supported rather than threatened. This balance allows progress to develop without forcing extreme adaptation. Muscle preservation also plays an important role in why this fasting window works well. During 14 to 16 hours of fasting, the body relies more heavily on stored fat while maintaining hormonal signals that protect lean tissue. Growth hormone levels remain supportive and cortisol stays within a manageable range when fasting is paired with adequate nutrition. This helps maintain metabolic rate, allowing energy expenditure to remain stable rather than decline over time. Maintaining muscle supports ongoing fat loss by keeping the body metabolically active. Hormonal stability is another reason this range feels sustainable. Hunger signals adjust gradually, aligning with consistent eating windows instead of appearing unpredictably. Energy levels remain steady, and daily activity feels easier to maintain. The body adapts to the routine without triggering defensive responses that slow progress. This predictability supports long-term adherence, which often matters more than intensity when it comes to body composition changes. The 14 to 16-hour fasting range also fits more easily into daily life. Meals can be planned around work, family, and social routines without creating constant friction. This practicality allows fasting to become a repeated pattern rather than a temporary challenge. Over time, repetition strengthens metabolic flexibility, improves insulin sensitivity, and encourages steady fat loss while keeping the body in a state that feels balanced, supported, and responsive rather than strained. Fasting length often receives most of the attention, yet the results people experience are shaped far more by what happens outside the fasting window. Food quality during the eating period plays a central role in how the body responds. Meals built around whole, nutrient-dense foods support stable blood sugar and provide the raw materials needed for recovery and hormone balance. When eating windows are filled with highly processed foods, insulin responses become exaggerated, energy crashes appear, and fat loss becomes harder to maintain even with long fasting periods. Protein intake holds particular importance during any fasting routine. Protein supports muscle maintenance, influences satiety, and helps regulate metabolism. Without sufficient protein, the body may break down lean tissue to meet its needs, which lowers energy expenditure and affects body composition. Adequate protein also stabilizes hunger signals, making fasting feel more controlled rather than chaotic. This balance allows the body to use stored fat while preserving muscle, supporting steady progress over time. Sleep quality quietly influences every aspect of weight regulation. Poor sleep alters hunger hormones, increasing appetite and reducing fullness signals. It also raises stress hormones, which affect how the body stores and releases fat. Even with perfect fasting timing, inadequate sleep can slow progress and increase cravings. Restorative sleep supports hormonal balance, improves insulin sensitivity, and enhances recovery, making the fasting process feel smoother and more sustainable. Stress levels shape how the body interprets fasting signals. When stress remains high, cortisol stays elevated, encouraging energy conservation rather than fat release. Emotional and mental stress can influence food choices, disrupt sleep, and reduce daily movement without awareness. Managing stress through routine, movement, and recovery helps the body respond positively to fasting rather than defensively. A calm internal environment allows hormonal signals to work as intended. Consistency over time often outweighs any specific fasting length. Repeated patterns teach the body what to expect, allowing adaptation without resistance. Irregular routines create confusion, leading to unstable hunger cues and inconsistent energy use. Fasting works best when combined with steady habits that support the body rather than challenge it constantly. Without attention to food quality, protein intake, sleep, stress, and consistency, fasting becomes just another tool used in isolation. Real progress develops when fasting fits into a broader system that supports metabolic health instead of relying on timing alone. Fasting works best when it is understood as a tool rather than a miracle solution. It can support fat loss, improve metabolic health, and create structure around eating, yet it does not replace smart habits or patience. Many people chase extreme fasting lengths, believing more effort guarantees faster results, but the body responds to balance, rhythm, and consistency far more than punishment. Longer fasting periods can help in specific situations, yet they are rarely superior when they cannot be sustained over time. Progress slows when routines feel forced, stressful, or disconnected from real life. The most effective fasting routine is the one that fits smoothly into daily living. A fasting window that supports energy, preserves muscle, and keeps hormones stable will always outperform an extreme method that leads to burnout or loss of control. Sustainable fat loss builds quietly through repeated habits, steady nutrition, quality sleep, and manageable stress. When fasting supports these foundations, it becomes powerful. When it replaces them, results become unpredictable. The goal is long-term change, not short-term struggle. Fat loss that lasts comes from methods that can be repeated week after week without constant resistance from the body. Fasting works when it supports balance instead of extremes, and when it is paired with habits that protect health rather than challenge it. Consistency creates momentum, and momentum creates results that stay. If this video helped you understand fasting in a clearer and more realistic way, support the channel by liking this video. It helps more people find content like this. Subscribe to our channel for more simple research-based explanations that cut through confusion and help you make smarter choices for your health.